able to connect and learn things in real time, have an impact in real time, based upon, for the most part, being a good person instead of just sell, sell, sell. So one of those people that I've connected with in like 47 different ways in the span of 3 weeks, my wonderful guest today, Mohammed Ramadan, who like literally everybody's mentioned your name. We've been tagged in all these posts together. This is the first time we've connected, I want to say in person, but we're, through the computer versus how many different, Facebook groups and stuff on that. Mo has just been expanding his firm like crazy recently. So I want to come in, hear his story, hear what he has to share. And again, we're talking about the future is now the modern law firm owner. So growing a firm in, 2023. Mohammed, it's so nice to have you today.
Thank you, Jordan. Honestly, I'm a big fan of yours. I've mentioned that to you before. So it's really, really a pleasure to be here and look forward to having some fun.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little about you. Who is Mo the lawyer?
So good question. I am a child of immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself. Immigrated when I was a baby. Grew up on the south side of Chicago. The short story of a very long story. I didn't really know I was going to go to law school. Wasn't anything I really thought about. I graduated high school, always worked, went to community college for a few years, kind of messed around there. And it's just kind of my story. It's just crazy how things just happen. But I had, I pulled my transcript. I got a 1.79 GPA at community college. But I kind of at some point hit a fork in the road and said, you're either going to go this way or that way. I jokingly applied to DePaul University because my friend was going to apply for college. They let me in. Till today, I don't know how with the 1.7 GPA. That was where my life just really took a turn. Met my mentors there. My main mentor, she kind of sat me down at one point and said, "Look, kid, what do you want to do?" And I said, I thought about being an attorney, but I don't know if it's really possible. I don't have a high GPA. I don't come from a family of attorneys. Yeah, the whole woe was me story. And she said, number one, nobody gives a shit. Okay, I'm gonna let you know from right now. Nobody cares about your sob story. But if you want to do it, I'll be more than happy to help you. If you're ready to put in the work, I will kind of guide you there. And I say, hey, I'm with it. So busted my butt. I went to school full time, 2 days a week, worked 5 days a week, caught up, built my GPA, took the LSAT, did just enough to get denied by almost every single law school. I applied to 8, 6 declined me, not even waitlisted. So I was kind of getting to the, okay, I gave it a good try. Then Michigan State came in and gave me a conditional acceptance and said, hey, look, if you come in early and prove yourself, we'll give you an acceptance. I said, it's my one shot. Sure. I packed my little Honda Civic. I drove to East Lansing. I took that program. I was about a month and a half. We took some finals. They let me in, got into law school. People always joke that they were top 10% of their class. I always joke and say I'm proud. I was bottom 20 of my class. It was right after I graduated about 2011. So not too far off from the crash. Jobs weren't great. Like I said, I was bottom 20 in my class. Didn't really have any network. I wasn't even getting job interviews. So I said, you know what? I got to do something. Going back home, I have no money. I need to figure something out, but I have a law license. And I kind of looked at it where I really didn't think I would be here. I didn't think I would ever be an attorney. So I was kind of like, oh, crap, you know what? I'm playing with house money. So November 14th, 2011, I got sworn in. December 1st, I opened up my law practice.
I love that.
Started from there and then just kind of built myself up to what it is now, which, we'll probably get into more details. But that is essentially the short story of a long story.
And, obviously, so being, 13, so applying like 08, 09, 2010, I still don't think law school admissions are at the same height now that they were then, although maybe they did go up during COVID.
Yeah, it was, again, I was just happy to be there at that point. And, it was just a bad market. And I got to the point I said, you can cry about it and wait for someone to give you a job, or you could put a suit on. I mean, you have a law license and it helps being young and naive. Okay. I was definitely young and naive. Now looking back at it, I'm like, holy crap, did you really do that? Like, how crazy were you? But at the time it was like, okay, I got to do something. So it's funny how time changes your perspective. But at that time, I wasn't married, didn't have kids,
Right.
a shit ton of debt and a law license and got to work.
So what'd your parents do?
So my dad was the typical immigrant. My parents, I'd say, were typical immigrant story. My dad worked as a door-to-door knocker when he first came, worked in the flea markets, and then he became at some point a real estate broker. My mom was a stay-at-home wife. I'm the youngest of six kids.
There
Uh,
you go.
yeah, so my mom was a stay-at-home, and we were never dirt poor, but we had enough, right? We had a house and we had food and we had just enough clothing, and the rest, my entire life was basically, look, you get the necessities. Anything extra you want, go work for it and get it. We're in survival mode. So immigrants are always in survival mode. So we were always kind of in survival mode. But they embodied the immigrant mentality of we gave up everything to come here for one thing, opportunity. And
Right.
education was the key to opportunity. So mainly for my mom. My mom was really big on get educated, get an education. This country's built for that. You could do it here. Even when I doubted myself, can I really go to law school? And she said, yes, that's why we came to this country. And that always still pushes me. I always wanted to make sure that I validated their decision, right? And I feel I have, but I lived with that immigrant mentality for most of my life and kind of still do. It still kind of pushes what I do.
Well, it's always. I mean, I just finished reading Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and so
Love
it's
it.
always funny because he goes into such detail about this, and it's like, look, you have that first generation, either starting the business or coming, bringing over with whatever skills from the old country, and then the next generation, it's like lawyers, doctors, psychologists, whatever it is. So God bless your parents for putting you in the position to be able to take on all that debt to then go through law school. So, all right, here's how I want to start. We'll dive deeper into the story, but you open in, you said 2011 with the firm.
Correct. Yep.
So if you could go back now 12 years ago, other than convincing yourself about how crazy you were in the moment, what would you tell yourself on day one? Now looking back, 12 years later.
Good question. I would probably a couple things, but one, I would reiterate mentors. I would spend probably more time finding more mentors. I think I learned later in my career just how important mentors really are. Second thing I would tell myself is patience. Patience. There's a few times I've rushed things and I wasn't as knowledgeable on certain things that I probably rushed into. Thirdly, I would tell myself people lie. And what I mean by that is don't always believe what you see. I was always for a while caught up on, oh man, look at that law firm. They're doing really well. Or, oh my God, he's got so many cases. Or, man, what am I doing wrong? And in reality, a lot of it is fluff and people don't always tell you the truth. And I used to kind of buy into that and look at others and say, why am I behind? Or what am I doing wrong? When in reality, I was just growing. And I think it was a combination of those things that I learned the hard way, but it all goes back to patience on almost everything. I would say is it gets better. You're going to struggle, but it does get better. Just keep going.
It's funny. I think we've gone a little bit past this as a legal community, but for so long there were so many of these lawyers. I want to be $1 million firm. I want to be $1 million firm. I want to be $1 million firm. And I was always like, great, spend, 1 million or 1.5 million on marketing. And then as long as you don't lose all of it, you'll be $1 million firm.
Yeah.
It's like, it goes back to your, people lie, like what you see isn't necessarily true, or the income statement versus the balance sheet, or, whatever you want to call it. The profitability versus gross revenue become very different. That's awesome, man. All right. So first days of the firm, what are you doing? What is the firm doing then? And then we'll transition into what you're doing now.
First days, I lived by fake it till you make it. I had a couple. So how I started was my family and close friends, immediate family, close friends. They threw me a pass in the bar party. So I told all of them because it was small. I said, look, please don't give me any corny monographed book or whatever you were going to get, whatever you were going to spend on that gift. Just give it to me in cash. I'd like to use this to open up my law practice. So I scraped up maybe about $2,000, 2,500. I put a security deposit, a first month's rent. I bought a desk and a computer, and I bought some really nice business cards. And I had like maybe $100 left for like gas and food. So I was like, okay, I have the base, and I would just walk into court in suit and tie that I bought from a sale rack, and I would just go and I would walk around and some of the funny things I would do, I would call. I remember my friends to laugh at me. My sister does. I used to call my sister and act like, I'd be like, hey, act like you're a client. And I would just, be a little dramatic, and I would walk past people so they can hear that I'm an attorney. And, Jordan, it worked. They would say, hey man, I got this, traffic ticket. Can you help me out? I would act like I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, you know what? I got a little bit of time left. I'll be able to handle this. And just, I would finish the traffic ticket, and then I would purposely walk into other courtrooms, act like I'm looking for a client just so others can see me. And I would literally even walk into some place and act like I'm writing notes down, and just to listen to the docket, just to learn what are the lawyers saying when we go up there, and what is the judge's response back to them. And so I would kind of learn through that, but I would act like I'm just waiting. And once the docket was done, before the judge would ask counsel, do you have a client? I would just zoom out of there and go to another room that was open. And then when I was kind of, that fiasco was done, I would find kind of the trial or motion rooms, and I would just sit there and just see how do these lawyers put on motions. And it's not, most lawyers complain about this, that law school doesn't teach you the basic. I didn't know filing appearance, which now looking back at is the most basic thing, and especially in criminal defense. Filing appearance in criminal defense is walking up to the clerk and hoping not to piss her off, and writing your name and attorney number, and just handing it over. But I had to watch other attorneys learn how to do that, and then I would get the form and I would learn how to write it before I would get a client. So I tried not to waste time, but yeah, I would just watch, and then I would do traffic tickets. The traffic tickets led to misdemeanor traffic, and then misdemeanor traffic led to a DUI. And then the DUI, eventually, my first felony was a low-level theft case. It was like my first $1,500 retainer. I mean, I was like, yeah, I was used to getting $100, $200, and that was my first like real retainer, and that was my first felony. And I'll never forget it. I asked him, I said, hey man, why did you hire me? I'm young. And he just looked at me. He's like, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. You were the best dressed dude in there. You look like you know what you're talking about. And I knew I could get you for cheap. I said, sold. I'll take it.
There you go.
I'll take it. Okay.
I just think it's so funny. You're talking about, your dad going door to door, and here you are going courtroom to courtroom, courtroom.
Yeah, it was survival because, I would make, say, $100 from the ticket. And I'm like, okay, cool. I got gas for this week and I got lunch. And then the next day, it's like I made another $100. Okay, now I can pay my cell phone bill, this month. Cool. That's like, all right, I need to make my rent for the rest of the month. And it was, when you're in survival mode, you find ways. It's crazy how life works, but things just pop up, and then this person needs this, and your buddy from high school that you played football with, his girlfriend, got a traffic ticket. Oh, hey, call my buddy Mo. And it kind of just started from there. And then it built up from there. And I also used to, one big thing that helped me out a lot is I used to do covers for other attorneys. So an attorney would call me and say, hey, Mo, especially in criminal defense, sometimes you got to be in 3-4 different courthouses in the morning at the same time. Hey, Mo, can you go to Bridget Courthouse and give me a date? They'd pay me $100. But it wasn't the $100 for me. It was, I basically got to learn on their dime, and I couldn't screw up, because if I screwed up, I don't know, judge, I'm just covering for this attorney. I don't really know. Can I step out and call them? But I would also learn, and anybody that criminal defense knows, things rarely ever go right. So things would hit the fan, and I would have to learn how to figure out and maneuver this. And then, judges would see me. I would build a relationship with prosecutors. And it was, for me at first, it was the money. I just needed that $100. But then I started to learn, oh crap, like I'm really learning through this. And sometimes I would go cover for a lawyer and I would get another client because I would just happen to be in a courtroom. So I would really sell myself to attorneys like, hey man, I'll do your covers, $50. I don't care. Just let me do your covers. And then I met other attorneys through that. And then they would say, hey man, I don't have time for this misdemeanor. Do you want to take it? I'm like, great, I'll take the misdemeanor. I'll take anything. And that allowed me what I didn't realize at the time, but later I realized I built that relationship. So when I started to really get felonies, knew what I was doing, I knew enough really good attorneys to pick up the phone and say, hey, Mike, I'm in front of Judge so-and-so, I'm thinking about filing this motion. How do you think he's going to react to it? Or, hey, do you have a case, that you can help me with, that can help me with this situation? And they were very helpful. And I think one thing that really took me off guard, I was shocked by, which I'm really happy about, was in criminal defense, there was a camaraderie amongst the defense attorneys. It was never competitive. We always helped each other out. And coming from law school where everything's competitive, I was surprised by that. I did not expect it. And I cannot tell you how many times a veteran attorney has saved my ass in court when they saw the deer in the headlights look, and without me even asking, just really helped me out. And it still means a lot to me till today. And I still see some of them. And that was really helpful to know that there's other veteran attorneys. There's been times where the judge will say, fill out this order. And I'm like, sure, judge. And I had no idea what the judge wanted. And a veteran lawyer will come and say, hey, come here, let me show you. Grab the motion and make sure I wrote it right. And I cannot tell you how much that helped me. So it was just little things.
The expression that I've always heard here was criminal attorneys are more than civil to each other, and civil attorneys are more than criminal to each other.
That's a good one. That is so true. It is so true. But yeah, and I gained kind of relationships and mentorships and got to know judges and know how the system works through all of that. So that's why I always tell young attorneys, don't always focus on the money. I know you need to survive, but live off basics, because that knowledge, I mean, still till today, I mean, I've learned how to be an attorney through other great attorneys. And it was those early years where they would give me the little nuggets that I still till today kind of rely on.
Well, and I love, you're not talking about this $100 is me getting a secretary. You're like, this is gas money. This is the phone bill that, so there are certain things that you definitively need. And I love the idea of making enough to cover those things, but leveraging as much of the experience as possible.
Absolutely.
So on the transition from that attorney to now, you've got Ramadan and Associates, and you've expanded the firm so much. What would you say is that first big step that you took towards going from that, survival mode to more of a thriving mentality?
I think it was stages, right? And I think after I got over the first couple of years of survival, I'm like, okay, I have some consistent income now. I'm handling bigger cases. I'm doing attempted murders now, and I'm doing all of that. The business sense didn't really kick in until I started to really kind of shift into the PI world a little bit. That was probably after year 5 or 6. I started to kind of shift more into the PI. And I think my biggest jump came, I got to a point where I'm Gen X, right? So I'm familiar with technology, but I didn't grow up with technology, right? So I'm kind of that middle ground of, I know technology, but in my high school, we didn't have computers. Okay. So I love technology, but I didn't know too much about it. And I'm like, I can't be the only lawyer that's looking for like technological advances. Like technology's got to help our industry. I always felt our industry was so behind the times. And I'm like, I can't be the only lawyer thinking like this. And then I started running into other lawyers, and then boom, Maximum Law Group was probably one of the biggest influences for me. It really woke me up, and it for me, I found my tribe. That's how I felt. And I was like, okay, I knew there was another world out there that could make my law firm more efficient, use technology, lawyers who think with business, because every lawyer up to that point I met was all about just being a lawyer. And to me, I always felt there's way more to this, because I've owned my own since the start. Right. I always had to see the business perspective. And for others who were always associates most of their career, they never had to deal with overhead. They never had to deal with payroll. They never had to deal with marketing. So to them, it was just how to litigate a case. And for me, it was hard to find. And then when I found groups like the Maximum Law Group, I really was like a kumbaya, my tribe. I finally found you guys.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Can you go a little, like when you say I found my tribe, can you go a little bit deeper on like what that tribe is? I know you're talking about, the not just being a lawyer, having the business sense, but like go deeper on that for me, because I so agree with you. Okay. I just think that like the more that we can put a fine point on that, the easier will help more people find their right.
So when I say found my tribe, I was getting to a point where I was very distressed with the legal world. I'm like, I can't be the only one thinking like this. And then I found these groups of lawyers who want to talk about automation and who want to talk about ROI, who want to talk about intake, who want to talk about case management. I didn't know what the hell a CRM was until I met other attorneys who started to say, here's what a CRM did for my office. And for me, I was getting to the point where I'm like, I need to use my time better. And then once I found like the search bar in the Maximum Law group, then I can go in time management. Boom. And I would, and here's something that's key and why I say my tribe. Why Maximum Law Group is so effective is people like you, Jordan, and people like Craig and people like Jim Hacking who actually respond and give real details, right? Up to that point, a lot of attorneys you meet locally, they don't want to give you too much, right? Because you're their competitor. And if you start asking questions, they start to look at you sideways as if you're trying to kind of eat into their business, when in reality, I just wanted to learn. And groups like Maximum Law Group and guys like yourself and Jim and Craig and Maddie, and I mean, I can go on, who were really not only willing to answer, but give and divulge real details. And just to see the energy of excitement over new technology and like, I'm a geek. You talk about intake, like, yeah, like I want to talk intake, that's what I meant by my tribe, where that people got excited to talk about automation and got excited to talk about intake. And you could say ROI and KPIs, and they understand what you meant. I mean, I used to say, ask lawyers, what KPIs are you using? I want to implement KPIs. Who? What? Is that a motion? Is that a statute? Like, no, dude. Like, what are you judging your law firm on? What is your success based on? And nobody could answer that for me. And it was flustering. But so when I found my tribe, it was people I can have these conversations with, A, B, actually get real details from them. And that was a game changer for me. Big game changer.
Well, thank you for saying that. And you're welcome. We'll balance both. No. So, all right. So the firm's growing, you're moving into the PI stuff. You found the group. How are you implementing those ideas from the group back into the firm?
Trial and error, right? You can always go into any one of these groups and ask about answering services, right? You'll get 5 different opinions. So for me, it was, let me take kind of what people are saying. Let me go kind of try it out and see what fits my office, my client base, my staff, the way I want to envision things, and what works best for me. And I learned quickly that, there's different ways to do this, right? Different practice areas, different regions, different, philosophies. I mean, people run their offices different. And that was one thing I learned, that it's okay to do things a little bit differently, but you can still learn from how someone did things, right? I might not agree with your intake system, but I can agree with your philosophy on why you picked that way to do your intake system. Take that philosophy, bring it back to how we do things, and then kind of, figure it out from there. But it was about maybe 2-3 years ago. It took for me to lose, for what I thought, a lot of money on some marketing ventures. I started dabbling into like SEO and all this. After I lost a few $1,000s, more than a few $1,000s, it hit me. Mo, you don't really know this. Step back, learn, get educated, talk to others who have succeeded at this, and then kind of formulate your plan from there. So it took for me to kind of lose some money in trial and error, to take a step back and go to ground zero. And that's where I learned, I got a crappy intake. Hold on, my intake is leaking big time. So sure, I was getting leads, but I'm not signing them. So it wasn't the leads company's fault. Well, my intake was leaking, right? My follow-up game sucked. I wasn't following up properly. And once I started digging into these little intricate things, then I realized, a CRM will help with all of this. Boom. Okay, what are the best CRMs? Now I would research CRM. Okay, you got Lawmatics, you have Lead Docket. Now let me see what's the differences between the two. And it would be gradual and, just trial and error, dude. Like I would spend money on a program. If I didn't like it, so what? I lost a few $100, but I know now I don't like it, right? But now I know why I don't like it. So when I look at the next one, I already know if you don't have this, then I don't even take the meeting, right? So my paralegal at the time hated me for it because we switched to case management multiple times, but I said, I don't care. I need to find what's the best fit. And it was just a lot of that going on. And I realized I really enjoyed it. So I had no problem diving in for hours about intake and lead management and all of that.
And I want to highlight you had that what fits best for me, the different areas, different locations, different philosophies. What you said there in 15 seconds is the most important thing that I try to convey to so many people. Because even well-meaning advice might be wrong for you, for your firm, whatever. I love that. I do understand what your paralegal was going
I
through during
blame the
your time
legal
there.
world for that, Jordan, and that's one of my biggest issues with the legal world is
Yeah.
um, I fell into this trap when I came out that in order to be a lawyer, you have to do things a certain way or you're not a real attorney, right?
Mm.
And I always joke with my lawyer friends, I'm like, bro, we've been doing some of the same things since Abraham freaking Lincoln was doing it. Okay. Things change, times change, the world progresses, and we want to stick to the same old crap we've been doing for 200 years. We cannot continue to do that. Hence why we have an image problem because we're so rigid in our ways. And I think that's changing, and social media has allowed that to change. And technology has allowed that to change. But where I still think a big chunk of the legal world is still caught up in a certain image that they have to either portray or their office has to do things in a way in order to be perceived as real professional law firms, which is total bullshit in my opinion.
Absolutely. So you mentioned this, like going through programs and knowing what you don't like. I want to flip that a second though. For anybody listening to this, like what information, how can you let them know that they've made the right decision when it comes to a program or marketing strategy? Like, how does it feel when you know you found the thing that fits for you?
For me, the question became, am I sleeping at night?
Okay.
Am I comfortable with this where I go home and like, okay, my cases are situated in a system that has made me comfortable. And you kind of just, again, I have to hands-on guy. So you also have to know yourself, right? Know your personality. I know I'm a hands-on guy, so I know it's going to cost me a little bit more because I have to try the program and I have to pay for a month or two to do it. So I knew going in, I know I'm going to lose X amount of dollars because I'm a hands-on guy. If you're not a hands-on person, you could probably read the things they provide. And if you think that's sufficient enough, great. My suggestion would be map out your dream system and go find something that comes as close as possible to your dream system. For me, it took going through a couple to know okay, now I know what I want and I'll find it. But you need to know what your dream system is for your office and your clients. Like, you know who you serve. Do you serve a higher tier, very wealthy client base? For us, we deal with blue collar people, right? Blue collar people are busy. They have work, they have kids, they have daycares, so I know my clients don't want to come in for a consultation. So I changed everything and incorporated text messaging because I realized they love text messaging. If you have, a very older crowd, they might not like text messaging. So you need to know who you're serving in order to know how to build your system around it. It's not just about you, it's about the client too. Who are you serving? Build around who you're serving and what makes you comfortable.
And it's so funny you mentioned the can I sleep well at night, because literally that is exactly how I decide. Like if I'm going into work an extra day, it's if I've had a couple nights where I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about like, oh, was this done? Was that done? Is this where it needs to be? Whatever. And while that may not be the best psychological advice, it is a pretty good like black and white. If I slept well, everything's going well enough. If I didn't, there's a problem with a system, with a system, with a person, with an employee, with a strategy, something along those lines.
But you know what you sold me on, Jordan? Probably one of the biggest things you sold me on. I think you're big on the 3-day work week. I think you work. You showed me a proven concept that I always thought that way, but I was always told, I've always worked my whole life, right? It's work, 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 work. When you become a lawyer, it's work, 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 work. And I think your proof of concept really made an impact on me that, you know what? Yeah, you don't have to work 100 hours a week and you could still own a successful law firm. That concept was never shown to us. Even in law school, it's work, 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 work. So and again, just seeing other lawyers like yourself who proved that concept, and I could say you were a much happier attorney than a lot of other attorneys that I spoke to. And that really put in my head that delegation, okay, it's okay to delegate and it will make you happier and you will have a better law firm for it. So that was one big thing that really changed kind of my view on how I ran things.
Well, thank you for that. what cracks me up is we get into the hat where we're like, oh, if you don't work 50, 60 hours a week, you're being lazy. And
Yes.
my standpoint is like, I have the opposite. Obviously, I'm biased. But like for me, it's like if you can just go work more, you don't have to actually think through how to solve a problem or prevent a problem from happening. You know, knowing that you've only got 24 hours a week or 32 hours a week or 40 hours a week to work, knowing that that's a finite resource makes you have to make things more efficient, more productive, as opposed to being like, oh yeah, I can take on that one extra case and I'll just come in, you know, I'll just stay till 9 o'clock on Wednesday and get it done. Like that's not how I want to spend my time.
Absolutely. So seeing other attorneys who have those proven concepts, it motivates you to say, okay, it is possible. How are they doing it now? Right. And then you go into the next phase of, oh, delegation. Okay. Well, what do they delegate? How do they delegate? Right. So you got to really keep asking questions, and you have to be honest with yourself, man, with yourself. That is one thing lawyers do not do. And when I advise lawyer friends, I always tell them, I'm going to ask you some questions. I don't need you to answer them now, but I need you to go home and I need you to dig deep and really answer these questions. And most of them cannot do it. And the simple one is, what do you want your law firm to look like? What do you want to be? And they give some bullshit boilerplate answer they've given since law school. And I said, no. Really dig deep. And I was always good at, I know some things suck in my office, so I need to get better at these things. Know what sucks in your office so you can fix it. Don't think everything's right because you're lying to yourself.
And I'll take that a step farther. And if you put everything in your office on a scale of 1 to 10, 10, it's perfect. It'll never be perfect. 1, it's awful. It'll probably never be that awful. But I always get dumbfounded by the lawyers who are like, oh, my intake is pretty good. I want to make it great. Like, all right, no problem. But like anything else, a more serious problem? Well, yeah, I don't have any leads coming in. All right, well, why don't you make sure they're lead like fix the things that are 2s, 3s, and 4s before you're like, well, this is a 7. I think I can make it a 9 with some tweaks. You know, there will always be that. It's like we had Stephanie Everett on, and I love the small firm scorecard that they have at Lawyerist. I've gone through that, I don't know, 12 times. And I just pull like where are the things I'm on the bottom of the scale. You work on those things. And then you realize, you know, whatever else pisses you off, you can work on that. It's just you got to enjoy the iteration though. You got to enjoy the journey. All right, so you're going to these stages, you're bringing in some of the automation, you're delegating some things more. Like when do you hit that like magic moment of this is successful, this is going the way I want, I'm happy, like whatever wording comes to you?
It's a good question. I think it was after I hired our second paralegal, which was about 1.5 years ago. For 4 or 5 years was myself and my rock star. I mean, I want to call her paralegal, but my therapist, my paralegal, my work wife, my assistant, she was everything, right? And then we hired, she was getting tapped out, and I sensed it. So an intern emailed me. She was at paralegal school. She heard about our office, and she was a rock star within the first week. So we ended up keeping her after, and then the hiring just kept going. I think it's the fact that I haven't spent on actual ad spend, and our leads are just constantly going up. And that's when I said, okay, all these years of planting seeds and social media and networking and being out there and not missing events that I promised to go to are finally paying off.
And
right?
Doing a great job on the legal work.
Correct. Thank you. And I always tell lawyers, you could be the best marketer in the world. You still have to kick ass on your work. Okay. You still have to do good work. And I think it was like, as I'm seeing we're growing, and as I'm seeing like my payroll's going up and I'm still not sweating it, I said, oh, wow. You know, like it was funny. I still have my book from when I first started. I was just doing it in a regular calendar because that's how old school criminal defense lawyers did, right? I wanted to be just like them. And I look at my numbers. I'm like, I wouldn't even pay one payroll period with what I was making, you know, my first few years. So it's really good to see all that hard work that you put in kind of finally starting to pay off. And for me, it's like, okay, now that I have a team around me, even though it's not a huge team, but I can really now focus on building the business and focus on the practice and not in the practice. And that happened recent. And that's why they gave me the confidence to kind of now really start putting some fire behind things.
All right. So I've got two ways I want to go with this. Let me go the shorter aside, and then we'll go to the longer follow-up question. So what do you say to that fellow attorney who is who is concerned about hiring, unwilling to hire, afraid they're not going to make payroll, afraid they're not going to have the cases coming in? Like, how do you help somebody get over that hump?
It's a good question. I get that question a lot from people that want to go on their own. Um, what I try to explain to them is you will not understand how much that extra time and mental capacity that you now have will drive your growth. Because right now you're so entrenched in doing everything, you don't realize that you don't have any extra time. When you find that right person that comes and now alleviates time, and it's not just time, I explained to them, it's one, more than one, but a lot of less things that you have to now think about, that you can shift that focus to lead generation now, right? Now you can make it to that networking event because you've already got things established. So you won't know it until you hit it. But I always tell them, I've never seen a law firm that I've helped who hired that ever regretted it. They've only regretted a bad hire. They never regretted that they had to hire. Just the amount that of time that you'll get, it's irreplaceable, man. It really is. If you want to grow, you have to bring on help. You just have to.
So, and that, great. That goes right into what my question was going to be anyway. So you talk about having this team that allows you more time spent working on your business instead of in your business. What does that mean to you? What are the things that you're doing that are that top level owner working on your business role?
Man, everything from, so I split my office into three major categories. I have lead gen, I have intake, and I have operations. And every day I'm a checklist guy. I'm a huge, everything's a checklist to me. My entire life is a checklist. That's just how I operate. So I have kind of to-do checklists under each major category. And then within that, I have other little checklists. So I'm trying to kind of revamp my intake. So I'll have a bunch of things lined up for intake. I'll have a bunch of things lined up for operation. And then lead gen includes marketing and all of that. So I always prep the night before. I look at my lists and then I say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours on intake. I'm going to spend this time slot on lead gen or whatever it is. So I schedule it the day before and I leave time for, putting out fires. I'm still in that stage where I'm not 100% hands off. So I do have to leave time for putting out fires or talking to certain clients or leave referrals. But yeah, I split myself into categories. And then what I've learned, because I always sucked with time management, so I've tried to get better by putting blocks of time. I learned a detailed calendar doesn't work for me. I can't have at 9:15, you're going to do this for 35 minutes. Doesn't work. So I just do blocks. 2 hours, you're going to work on intake, brother. Find your list, work on things through that list, check them off and go with it. So everything from getting my social media content ready, preparing to shoot for that, talking to my social media manager on how we're going to pull that out, then talking to my head of operations. How's the case management? Are we missing anything? I want to implement this. Okay. All right. We're not knowing about MRIs quick enough. We need to find something to implement in our system that follows up with the clients and the medical network much faster than we normally are. When there's fires, what caused this fire, guys? Okay, there's a leak in our system. Where's the leak? Find that leak. My job to find the leak. My job to fix that leak. So it's kind of those things that are always there. I'm a big believer. If you're not progressing, you're regressing. I've seen it. If you're not trying to get better, you're only going to get worse. You cannot stay static. Not in our industry. You just cannot. So it's just always trying to do better. And I'm a believer in the 1%er. Get 1% better today. I used to try to fix everything. Oh, my intake will be done by the end of this month. Nah, it's not. Relax. Okay. So I've learned to, all right, let me fix this part of, this, let me fix this. So it's incremental growth. And again, like I said, it's just learning from your screw ups. I mean, but you have to do in order to screw up to learn. And I always tell them, stop being scared. Lawyers are scared. That's their biggest issue. They're scared of everything. Lawyers are so scared of everything. And I always tell them, stop being scared, jump in there, screw up, you'll figure it out. I mean, you got a goddamn law degree. You figured it out up to this point. You're scared to figure out case management? I mean, come on, dude. Stop being scared.
Well, dude, I love how you frame that. And it always cracks me up. They, well, maybe that's the wrong term. let me, I mean this in the most positive way. So if you pull like Clio's legal trends report, you'll find that the average solo attorney makes like $60,000, give or take, depending upon the year, which is great. And then you also figure on average, you've got like $150,000 in student loan debt plus everything else. So you've got this lawyer who's like struggling to be able to afford to pay off their loans, who's concerned about making a bad financial decision that will ruin their firm, that will cause them to have to get a job where they'll make like 2 to 3 times as much money. It's like this interesting spot to be stuck in where you're scared to take a risk to get out of being miserable for fear of
Yes.
being less miserable in the future.
It's so true. But it's embedded in our industry, unfortunately, and I think it is changing over time. But it is embedded within our culture of our industry. It's a culture thing. We just don't want to admit it.
So in the last, we've got a 5 or 10 minutes. So I want to flip the script this way. If, obviously you're talking to a bunch of lawyers now, helping them do that, the modern law firm owner, what are your most common tips, or what are like the 3 to 5 things that a law firm owner could and should start doing today if they know they want to turn their firm around and be better going forward?
Yeah, first thing, and everything revolves around this. I'm a big believer that I believe we are now in the era of authenticity. And what I mean by that is people do not want the stuffy old dude in front of bookcase lawyer anymore. They want to know that you like to go fishing, because guess what? People like to fish. People like to know that you bowled a 220 because they go bowling with their friends too. They want to relate to you guys. Stop with this image that you have to be stuffy and that they taught us in law school that don't show your personality. It's the complete opposite these days. People want to know who you are, because in today's world, before they buy anything, before they hire anybody in any industry, they're going to go to your Google page. They're going to go to your Instagram page. They're going to check out your Facebook. They want to know who I'm working with. They're going to know everything about you. So it's up to you what you show them before they come to you. So rule number one is the era of authenticity. Be yourself. You will attract the people that want to hire you. Stop going after those people who will never hire you. That's one. Two, you can do a lot of things to get your name out there that are very low cost. Okay. If you're just starting off, you should be meeting with a new lawyer minimum once a week. It costs you nothing but a coffee and a lunch. What's that? $10, $15, $20 to buy 2 coffees, 2 lunches. And what I tell them is go find lawyers that practice what you do not practice. So I do PI. I don't meet with PI lawyers, right? Unless, I know them, we're working on a case or whatever, but for networking, I go for divorce lawyers, family lawyers, immigration lawyers, criminal lawyers. And I just network with them. Look, man, I'll give you my criminal leads if I get them. All I want your PI leads. And I go a step further. I don't even want a referral cut from you. Just give me your exclusivity that you'll send me all your PI stuff. Build with that, right? But here's the key, and here's where they all lose. Their follow-up game is terrible. Don't just meet with them once. Follow up in 2 days, right? And if in your conversation, they mentioned that they're a movie buff. Hey, man, there's that new movie coming out. Did you check it out yet? I want to know your review since you're a big movie buff. Hit them with something that showed that you paid attention to them. And then, if you can afford it, send them a little card or a gift card, or if they, love candles, send them a candle, right? Those little human connections are very cost effective, but they work. I mean, last month we sent the lawyer that we know over $25K in referral fees. He sent us so many cases and he loves us. Okay. He absolutely loves us. And guess what? I still took him out to lunch when I gave him the referral check. So 2 would be, you don't have to use big money tactics. Still use old school in their face. 3.
Let me, before you go to 3. And look, the part that you said about that follow-up, we talk so much about lawyers, how we only have our word, right? Like you have to do right by your word. But then when you meet somebody at a networking event, you're like, oh yeah, I'll send you that email. Oh, I'll send you my card. I'll send you this. And then you don't. You've ruined your word right there on day one. Like that follow-up is the first opportunity for you to show them that you are a person of your word in a super easy way of like a follow-up text or a thank you card or whatever it's going to be.
Absolutely. Crazy.
Right,
and the ones that do follow up, I'm more than happy to work with them. Like you said, you've proven some credibility there. I think 3rd would be, I'm a huge proponent of social media. If you're a lawyer and you're not on social media, you are absolutely missing out. one, it's free. Okay. I mean, nothing beats free. All right. Two, what I love more than anything about social media is the autonomy and freedom that it gives us to build our firms in any image that we would love to create it in. You get a blank slate. You get to create. I have friends who say, I don't talk about my personal life on it. Great, but you give great advice. That's your shtick, right? I like to joke and laugh sometimes on Instagram. I'll do stupid, funny polls. I enjoy that. I have fun with it, right? And people that I interact with like it. But I get to craft what I want. And I always tell people there's no reason you should not be on social media. Absolutely no reason. As attorneys, we are educators of the law. You should always be educating people on the law. People should know their rights because of us. And why people don't use a free platform that reaches billions of people every day is beyond me. I don't know why. And if you tell me I don't know how or I don't know what to do, I will tell you. With Google and YouTube, you could build a goddamn rocket ship. Okay. You can literally build a damn rocket ship. I Googled it. Go to YouTube. You can type in how to build a rocket ship. And there's a guy on there trying to explain to you how to build a rocket ship. My point of that is I always tell people that is not an excuse. Okay. With Google and YouTube, you can literally learn anything you want. I follow attorneys all the time on social media. What are they doing? Oh, I like this guy. You know what? I might mimic some of it in my style. So please use social media, guys. It's free. It's effective. And it allows you the freedom to do whatever the hell it is that you want and build your dream law firm through that.
Well, and like, look, I'll be honest. I remember better your post about the Chicago Bears or the anti-Aaron Rodgers stuff that makes me crack up every time than anything legal related. But
Correct.
it's enough for me to remember that if I had something in Chicago, I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, my fellow tortured football fan, just
Yes.
for the Bears instead of the Dolphins, you know?
Yes. So, I think my overall thing would be, don't forget we are in a people business, and don't forget that human connection, because even with all this technology, nothing trumps human connection. That will never go away. It's just different ways of connecting with people, but we are in a people business. Connect with people and you'll be surprised how the calls will come.
I love it. All right. So anything else before we start wrapping up here? You'll still have your final nugget of wisdom, biggest takeaway, but before we jump into that.
No, again, I would just stress the era of authenticity. This is proven, statistically proven these days. I just like to remind people, millennials are now mid-30s. Okay. Just keep that in mind. Millennials are in their 30s and are buying homes and are getting married now.
Dude, I think older millennials, are 40 something.
You see what
yeah.
I tell you, millennials grew up on this. So stop thinking about your grandmother and your auntie that's no longer your market. Unless you're doing estate planning. I'm sorry, but your millennials are now married with, my nephew's a millennial. He's got a child. Okay. And
he's got a mini millennial.
Right. It's crazy. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, holy crap, my nephew has a kid now. He's a purebred millennial. Like the way they parent, everything they do is millennial. And I'm like, well, he's my market now. That's who they are. So don't forget who your market has changed, my friends. It's no longer the older generation. And my mom is 75. She's on Facebook every day of the week. Every day of the week. My 75, and she's sending me links to buy her purses. But that's just to show you the power of social media, that my 75-year-old mother is on there every day.
I love it. All right. So we'll get to the wrap up. But before that, for people that are smart enough to have heard this and want to connect with you more, what's the best way for them to do that, to see some of this in action?
Absolutely. Instagram is my favorite. Mo the Lawyer on Instagram, Mo the Lawyer on TikTok. Those are probably my two biggest things. Outside of that, on YouTube as well, Mo the Lawyer on YouTube. So those are my three main platforms. I'm always on there. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm very responsive. So if you ever want to reach out, definitely do it through Instagram. We're very responsive there.
And to anybody who is listening to this versus watching it, it's Mo, M-O-E, the lawyer, not
Correct.
just M-O.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah.
M-O-E, the lawyer.com, on all the platforms.
And so, all right, that being said, if anyone's been listening for the last 57 minutes and remembers nothing that you said except what you're here, what would be your most important takeaway, your biggest nugget of wisdom to help more lawyers be the exhibit A of a successful attorney such as yourself?
don't be scared of change. Everything changes, everything progresses. My law firm will look different in 10 years. It better look different. If it doesn't look different, something's wrong. I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid of change. Embrace it. Find other lawyers that you admire, that you would like to kind of emulate. And it's okay to say that. Find them, see what they're doing right. They got the cheat code, man. Don't reinvent it. Go find the ones that are doing it right. They have the cheat code. Learn from them. Take them out to dinner and drinks. You'll find more information from them than any book you'll ever read in your career. Just don't be afraid of change. Change is good. It'll make your firm a lot better.
I love it. And I want to add, one, I love who are doing it right. Everyone's gonna have a different view of right, whether that's maximum revenue, whether that's maximum time savings, so find the one that works for you. And then two, don't be afraid to make those same connections with people that are only slightly farther than you. Because, like an attorney coming out now, or even one at 5 years talking to you, is going to get a much different perspective than talking to the guy that's been an attorney for 35 years, who's like, oh, advertising the phone book. Like there's a benefit of seeing some of the more nuanced, unique, timely stuff.
Very good. I'm glad you said that, because I talk to owners of $100 million law firms, but I do it with a grain of salt, right? It's great. I could learn some things, but I don't have their resources, right? So I still have my main network as lawyers within kind of my reach who face the same issues that I'm currently facing. We talk a lot more. And then sometimes we go to the older, more established firms just to kind of clarify some things or see what they're doing. But I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes you'll look at way more successful firms, but they've been doing it for 30 years. They got a head start on you. Don't emulate that, because it's just not it's just not the right way to go about it. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
All right. Mohammed, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to everybody who's watched and listened. We'll see you back here next Thursday at 6 p.m. for our next episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. And for any of you looking to connect in one of those groups, obviously I'm a huge fan of the Maximum Lawyer Group. Also, we've got our own group, Solutions for Lawyers by Lawyers, on Facebook. We've got over 1,000 members, really trying to help everybody share those internal nuggets of wisdom with each other to help move us all forward. So thank you everybody for the time, especially Mo. Thank you so much for the hour, and we'll see you all back next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of a successful attorney, please check us out at LegalEaseMarketing.com, EASE.